She rode in from the horizon like a whisper carried by dust, quiet, worn, and with the kind of sadness that doesn't need words to explain itself. Her name was Clara. She sat straight on a tired, dust-covered horse, eyes scanning the jagged ridges of Apache land as the sun melted into orange behind her. Her dress was tattered at the hem, her satchel beaten by miles, and the wind barely moved the strands of hair escaping from her worn-out hat. Nobody spoke when they saw her. But eyes watched. 2 of them belonged to twin girls, tiny, wild-haired, brown-eyed, peeking from behind the corner of a wooden shack. They couldn't have been older than 7, dressed in handmade cotton dresses with beads dangling from their braids. Their faces weren't afraid, just curious. The kind of curious that belongs to children who've seen too much silence and not enough laughter. Clara looked at them and smiled. Not a big smile, just enough to show she wasn't a threat. The girls whispered something to each other and giggled before disappearing behind the hut. That was the first laugh Clara had heard in weeks. She had come west looking for silence. After the war took her husband, and the fever took her baby, she'd had nothing left to stay for. Her hands had once saved lives in a crowded makeshift hospital in Georgia. Now, they just clutched a carved wooden spoon and a faded photo of a man in uniform, James, her husband. She didn't know what she was searching for anymore. Maybe a place to be invisible. Maybe a reason not to be. The Apache camp wasn't used to strangers, especially not white women riding in alone. But Clara didn't come with soldiers or sermons. She came with a pot, herbs, and healing hands. In time, she cooked meals over open fires. She cleaned up wounds, told stories to children, and never asked for anything in return. They started calling her, the quiet woman. A few called her, Mama Clara, without knowing why. And then came the man they called Grey Hawk. Once a warrior feared by cavalry generals, now just a shadow sitting near a fire, carving wooden spoons with a knife so worn it looked like it had carved his soul. He rarely spoke, didn't smile, but he watched, always. Especially when Clara was near his daughters. Yes, the twins were his. Orphans of a kind. Their mother had died 3 winters ago, and since then, Grey Hawk had become colder than the mountain wind. He didn't touch them much, didn't scold them either, he just carved and stared, as if he were still living in some battlefield only he could see. Clara didn't try to speak to him. Not at first, but she noticed the little things. The way he made the twins' moccasins by hand. How he left dried berries by their beds at night. The way his hands shook when the youngest had a fever and he didn't know what to do. One day, while cooking stew for the elders, Clara felt a small tug on her skirt. It was the twins. "You can't just give us beans," the bolder one said, arms crossed. "You don't know Papa's taste yet." Her sister giggled. "He likes meat, and salt, but not too much." Clara laughed gently and nodded. "I'll do better tomorrow." They ran off, and Grey Hawk watched the whole thing from the shadows, his hands paused mid-carving. That night, he placed a small pile of dry meat beside her tent. No words, just meat. That was the beginning. They didn't talk much, but something began to grow between them. The girls would drag Clara to show her their favorite hiding spots. She'd let them help cook, even if they made a mess. Grey Hawk would sit closer to the fire when she was around. He never spoke directly, but his eyes softened. His shoulders stopped looking like they were carrying the whole mountain range. Then, one morning, Clara reached into her bag and realized something was missing: her wooden spoon. The last thing James had given her. Her breath caught in her chest. She turned her tent upside down, searched the grass outside, but it was gone. Just as panic began to rise, she saw something near the fire pit. A spoon. Not hers. New. Handmade. The handle was carved with small patterns, flowers, a sun, a child's smile. Next to it lay a folded piece of animal hide with words scratched into it in shaky English. "You feed them. You see them. Maybe. You stay." Clara knelt there for a long while. She picked up the spoon like it was glass. Her fingers traced every notch, every mark, knowing who had made it. She didn't cry, but she felt something crack open. That evening, as the stew simmered, the twins ran up to her again, giggling harder this time. "You can marry our papa," one of them declared boldly, thrusting the spoon into her hands. Clara blinked. "What? You can stay forever," the other chimed in, almost singing it. "You already cook better than him." Then they ran off laughing. She looked down at the spoon. The same spoon Grey Hawk had carved. The same one she now stirred the pot with. She didn't see it as a joke. not after the look in Gray Hawk's eyes when she glanced up at him. He was standing a few feet away, arms crossed, eyes locked on hers. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Then, in a voice rough as sand but softer than anything she'd heard from him yet, he said, "I don't have much, only what I carve, but, if they choose you, I won't stop them." It wasn't a proposal, not in the traditional way. There was no ring, no kneeling, just truth. Clara didn't answer. She didn't have to. She stirred the stew once, then twice, and handed him the first bowl. From that day on, the girls didn't ask questions. They just started calling her Mama Clara, like it had always been her name. Gray Hawk carved her a chair beside his. They shared meals, laughter, even silence, because silence between them wasn't empty anymore. It was comfortable, safe. She taught him how to write letters. He taught her how to track deer without making a sound. They planted herbs together. He carved more spoons. Sometimes, in the quiet evenings, Clara would look at the old photo of James and whisper a soft thank you for carrying her heart just far enough to find another. Not everyone understood. Some in the camp whispered. Some raised eyebrows. But the twins didn't care. They danced and sang and told everyone their mama could cook better than any woman in the valley. And every time Clara picked up that carved spoon, she smiled. Because sometimes, love doesn't knock with a ring. Sometimes, it's handed to you by two little girls, with a spoon, and a smile.